What's up guys, it's Ryan here, and welcome to this beginner's guide to Telos from 0 to 500% Enrage. Before we get things started, let's talk about the requirements and the recommendations to use this guide. I tried to keep the requirements pretty simple. You're going to need some kind of overloads. You're going to need either the tier 87 Obliteration Staff or the Elder Wand and Orb that are dropped from Helwyr, and you're going to need some Subjugation Armor. In terms of things you don't necessarily need but I think are worth getting before trying out Telos, I'd recommend you unlock Dreadnips from the Dominion Tower, you unlock Ancient Curses by completing the Temple at Seniston quest, and you also have either 87 or 96 summoning for either a Nihil or a Pack-Yak Familiar. Sunshine also helps a lot, and it can be unlocked by completing the World Wakes quest. Now that we've gone over the requirements and the recommendations, let's get into the actual guide. For starters, let's take a look at Telos. Telos is combat level 2000, has between 400,000 and 600,000 life points depending on Enrage, attacks with melee and magic, is not immune to stuns or poison, and has a max hit of over 15,000 damage depending on the Enrage. The affinity or base hit chance you'll have on this boss is 40%. Now that we know just a little bit about this boss, it's time to take a look at a sample gear and invent setup. I'm wearing full subjugation with Cinderbane gloves, I have an Amulet of Souls and an Asylum Surgeon's ring, I've got a rune pouch equipped, and next to that I've got an Elder Wand as well as a Merciless Kite Shield. In my invent I've got a Replenishment Potion, an Overload, a Prayer Renewal Potion, 2 Super Restorers, my Brews, some Sailfish Soup, a 1-dose Weapon Poison, my Dreadnips, my main staff, and a Guthic Staff. I also have an Enhanced Excalibur and a Crystal Dagger that I'll be using for Bladed Dive, although this is not necessary at all. When you first start to learn this boss, I would recommend a Beast of Burden like a Pack-Yak or a War Tortoise, but once the mechanics start to make sense, you want to switch to a Nihil and or a Reaper Necklace as quickly as you can. This example invent uses flasks and sailfish soup, as I will be showing you guys how to kill this boss on a Nihil. That being said, if you need the extra food when starting out, you're welcome to downgrade the sailfish soup to something like a Rocktail, and then load up your Beast of Burden. If you're taking a Beast of Burden, I'd also recommend bringing 1 extra restore, as your kill speed might be a little slower. The final thing in my invent setup is a Ring of Vigor. It's not needed, but if you have one, you should definitely bring it. Anything in this gear and invent setup can be upgraded and downgraded as you see fit. Obviously, this is not the best gear in the game. I went for something that was semi-affordable, but also will get you really good performance. If you don't have some of the things that I mentioned, you should still be completely fine, as long as it wasn't outlined in the requirements. If you haven't unlocked Invention, you can completely ignore this part, but if you do, this is a really good middle ground starting at Telos perk setup. I have my Obliteration Staff augmented with Aftershock 3, as well as Precise 3 Equilibrium 2. I've got Enhanced Devoted 3, as well as Crackling 3 Mobile on my top, and then on my bottoms, I've got Biting 2, as well as Impatient 3. As with the gear setup, any of these perks can be upgraded and downgraded as you see fit. You could put Precise 4 Equilibrium 2 on the weapon, you could downgrade the Crackling 3 Mobile down to Crackling 2 Mobile, as it's a lot cheaper and a lot easier to get. And if you've got money to burn, you could upgrade that Biting 2 to a Biting 3. This is the most important slide in the entire video. This boss is extremely challenging, and taking the right approach to learning it is the first step in making sure that you can master this boss as easily and as quickly as possible. Because of this, we're going to take the time right now to learn the timing of every single mechanic and how to deal with each and every one. We'll start at phase 1 and we'll go all the way through to phase 5, one mechanic at a time. Telos' mechanics rotate in a linear fashion. Once every mechanic on a phase is used, Telos will repeat all mechanics a second or third or a fourth time until he reaches phase HP. This means that as long as you learn how to deal with all the mechanics in a way that you're not using any food, your DPS doesn't really matter all that much. We're not going to be going into DPS rotations too much here, and the main focus is going to be mastering these mechanics. Later on in the video, once we've learned all the mechanics, I'm going to put a full kill together, and at that point I'll talk a little more about optimal DPS rotations, what kill speeds you should be aiming for, and all that stuff that isn't quite as important. So for right now, grab some popcorn, it's time for phase 1. Phase 1 features 3 different mechanics: the Damage Tendril, the Uppercut, and the Hold Still. In the Damage Tendril attack, Telos is going to bind you so you can't move until you deal enough damage to free yourself. As you're in the Tendril, Telos is going to heal himself, so if you take too long to get out, you're going to end up having to redo a large portion of the phase. For that reason, it's important to try and get out of it as quickly as you can, although being in a Tendril for a couple seconds is not a big deal. While you're in this Tendril, your adrenaline is also going to drain at a rate of 5 per game tick. If you're in a Sunshine, the easiest way to deal with this mechanic, even at 500% Enrage, is to simply use Wild Magic. If the Wild Magic doesn't get it done, you can either add a Dragon Breath or a Guthic Staff spec to the end of it, and you should be more than good to go. At 500% Enrage, you need to do just shy of 8,000 damage, and you'll see in the clip I did a Wild Magic into a Guthic Staff spec, and that ended up being double the amount of damage I even needed. If your Wild Magic is on cooldown, holding an Asphyxiate will work the same way, and if you're not on a Sunshine, a Wild Magic into a Guthic Staff should be enough to get you out either way. Some people like to charge a Detonate and release it as the Tendril starts. I personally wouldn't recommend this as it gets in the way of your DPS rotation, and it really isn't needed until the higher enrages. The last thing to be said about the Tendril attack is that Telos won't start attacking you until the Tendril ends, so if you want to turn on Soul Split for a couple seconds and get some HP back, you're welcome to do that. The second mechanic is the Gilnor Uppercut, and this one is all about timing. Telos is going to say Gilnor, give me strength, and then a short while after that, the boss is going to surge towards you. The best way to mitigate the damage here is to either hit Surge, Escape, or Bladed Dive to change your location. At the lower enrages, this will only hit a couple thousand damage, but at 500% enrage, if you miss an uppercut, you'll be hit for over 7,000. The timing is a little different for everybody depending on what ping you play on and what your response time is, but how I like to do it is I see Telos say Gilnor, give me strength. At that point, I'll use one more ability, and then right before the point that I'd normally use a second ability, I hit either Surge or Escape, and that timing works out really well. That being said, if you play on a higher or lower ping, that might fire you off too early or too late. It's a little different for everybody, but it should function the exact same way every time you get this mechanic, so you really only need to figure it out one time and you'll be good forever. The third and final mechanic you'll be introduced to in Phase 1 is the Hold Still. This is the mechanic that people seem to struggle with the most, but it's also the most useful mechanic to get down fast. If you can understand the timing for this, you can literally get through over half of every Telos skill without using a single food. Doesn't matter what the enrage is. In this mechanic, Telos is going to say Hold Still Invader at the same time as he hits you with a regular melee auto attack. After that, he's going to hit you with a large melee attack, and then he's going to jump onto your current location. We'll talk about the order of mechanics later, but you need to have either Freedom or Anticipation up before Telos says Hold Still Invader, and if not, you're going to be late and you're going to miss out on the ability to heal all the way up to full life points at no cost to you. You'll see I leave my melee prayer on for the small melee hit. As soon as I see a small melee hit register, I know that I can safely turn off my melee prayer and then equip a shield and use the Resonance ability. This is going to give me an absolutely massive heal, and then I'm going to step out of the way for the stomp. The two things people get wrong with this is they will either use Freedom or Anticipation too late and they'll end up stunned and then stomped on, or sometimes people will put on their shield too early and then rezo the small melee hit, take off their prayer, and then get one hit by the big hit. This is another one of those mechanics that just takes practice. That's really the only way to get it down, and as long as you know what to look for and how it's supposed to look, you should be able to get it down pretty quickly. Because you have to use Freedom or Anticipation before the Hold Still starts, it's important to always know when the Hold Still is coming. In Phase 1, the Hold Still is going to be 3 auto attacks after the Gilnor Uppercut. In Phase 2, it'll be 3 auto attacks after the Magic Onslaught. In Phase 3, the Hold Still is exactly the same as in Phase 1, and in Phase 4, the Hold Still will be 3 auto attacks after the Small Anima Bomb. If you're not sure what I mean by auto attacks, let's count them together. After this Gilnor Uppercut, that is the first auto there. I've just been hit by the second auto attack, and then after this Asphyxiate ends, there's going to be the third auto attack. After that 3 auto attacks would be a great time to use Anticipation or Freedom, and the attack right after that will be the start of the Hold Still. Freedom lasts for 6 seconds and Anticipation lasts for 10 seconds, so if you're not sure exactly when the Hold Still is coming, if you use Anticipate, even if you're within a couple auto attacks of having it right, you'll still have Anticipation up and you won't get stunned. It's always good to err on the side of caution.